What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 32 of Trapped in My Mind. I am your host, Seth. Today with me, I got an old friend, Nathan, or Nate.
Either or.
Okay,
nice
Rodgers.
to see you here, Seth. Yeah, Rodgers, Raji.
Okay. If you want to try pulling it back, get more comfortable, you can. Just be careful. As I've already mentioned before, I didn't know how to mount these very well, so I don't know. I think you have a pretty not quiet voice, so I don't think it'll be much of an issue.
No, I've been told I have a loud voice, so should be good.
Okay. Shit, man. So it's been a hassle trying to get you on here. Our scheduling has been pretty interesting. So
yeah, definitely trying to get the date set, and it's just been wild past couple months, year.
But yeah, honestly, it has been almost. But I mean, I'm glad you're here now.
Mm-hmm.
Before we were even recording, we got a little bit talking about music, and I was like, well, you know what? Let's save that because I'm curious to see what you have to say. Because, like you mentioned, previously you grew up in band.
Mm-hmm.
What did you play in band?
So started out with the tenor saxophone, played that for 8 or 9 years, and then I picked up the bassoon in 8th grade. So played that for about 5 years.
Okay, I don't know what a bassoon is.
Yeah, it's the one instrument most people never think of, and it is the weirdest thing you'll ever see. It's about 4.5 feet tall. It has a little metal pipe sticking out with a double reed.
So it's I don't know what they're called. It's not a string instrument?
No, woodwind.
Okay, that's what it's called. I don't know. I can't even picture what that would sound like. Can you compare it to a different instrument sound?
No,
No?
not really.
Okay.
It's the oddest sound, and you'll never hear it if it's in a song.
So which one was your favorite to play?
Definitely the saxophone, getting into jazz music.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can you still play any of those instruments decently?
I still have the tenor, and I picked up an alto as well, and I'll pick them up every once in a while just to get a sound of it, but I haven't really put it into any of my music lately. Looking to soon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, if you could incorporate some jazz and maybe modern it up some with I don't know, drums or whatever you use, it might be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, have you heard of Masego, the artist?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's like my ideal making music scenario. Like his video, when he sat down and made Tadao,
Okay.
just sitting down, going instrument to instrument. He picked up, played the keys, and then he picked up the sax and added the sax sample, and then he went over to his drum kit and started playing it out.
Okay, see, I've never seen that video. I know his music, and he's really good, but I've never seen that video. I've seen Calvin Harris do something similar where, you remember the song Slide?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He broke it down sound by sound, instrument by instrument, and then layered it, and I was like, God, imagine. It's like they see this concept of a song before it's even written, and then just fill in the lines, and I don't get it.
Yeah, it's wild. I've sat down and watched a lot of different producers and artists just making hit songs. Like J. Cole has one out as well for... I can't remember the name of the song that he made it for. But he just sat down one of his more popular hits and just
A more recent
recreated one of his first ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's another thing. I mean, real quick aside, J. Cole produces his own shit most of the time, which I love when rappers can do both because production is hard as hell. So if you can do both and do it well and be the top of the rap level, I mean, pat yourself on the back, J. Cole. Not that he needs me to tell him, but I just think it's so cool. So, when did you stop playing instruments after high school? Then, when band was done, did you pretty much stop?
Yeah, after high school, once I got into college, I was focused on track. So I told myself if I didn't make the track team, I would have done band. But since I was on track, I took a little hiatus from music.
Okay.
Yep, and then picked it back up about my senior year of college. One of my teammates is a rapper, so I was kind of egging him on about his music, and he was like, oh, why don't you do something about it? So I started learning how to produce, took the challenge.
Okay. So it was more so kind of a nudge from him.
Yeah, a nudge from him, and then one of my other teammates' roommates, he had FL Studios, and he just sitting down making beats and just having a good time, so got into it from him too.
Okay. So, I mean, I remember from school, you were always very fucking smart and and critical, so you'd think through shit. Was learning DAW, FL Studio, it's a type of DAW. I mean, how was that?
It I just put probably way too much time into it. Like on bus travels between track meets, I was sitting in the back of the bus, headphones on, just on repeat on YouTube, watching like 4 or 5 hours of like learning videos, watching other producers produce, and then going into FL Studios, trying to learn all the systems, getting everything down, and just kind of hyper rolled through it.
So do you think you have a pretty good understanding of it?
I'd hope so. I haven't had a lot of listeners yet, but I mean, I like my music. I like what I do, and I've learned quite a few tips and tricks along the way.
Do you have because I saw it posted on Facebook. Do you have like a music name that anybody could go find it at, or is it on anything?
Oh yeah, so I'm on Apple Music, Spotify, SoundCloud, under Raji Records.
Okay.
All one word, RAJI, and then Records.
And currently, right now, it's just instrumentals.
Just instrumentals. Yeah, I throw some vocal, just little snippets in there, but yeah, it's all instrumentals. They're made for any rappers, anyone that wants to use it. You want freestyle on it, go ahead. I kind of just release royalty free right now. I'm just enjoying making music.
Why don't you ever sing on it?
I've always kind of been more of a quiet person. I'm overcritical. I'm thinking about it. I have one song me and my girlfriend are working on, but It just has been stuck in kind of the working phase for a while.
Does she sing, or she just like to be involved in like the musical process?
She used to be in choir in high school, and she actually tried out for American Idol once too.
Oh shit! Okay, so she probably got at least decent vocals if she's doing that.
She can hit much higher notes than I can and hit them well. So
okay, so you could just have her start singing.
Yeah,
but. Wow, okay. So what is it about music for you that makes you want to spend so much time producing it or creating it?
For me, it's definitely the expression of it. I've always kind of been an in my head guy, not enough time to talk. So just sitting down, making music, whatever I'm feeling in the moment, it helps get through things. It helps just process things in my head when I'm overthinking.
So why do you think you've always been in your head?
I've always kept an extremely busy schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I never really gave myself time to sit and relax. Like even in high school, I was doing 3 sports. I was in school.
And doing them well.
Doing them as good as I could. But yeah, so I don't know. Just never really took the time to sit down and think. And then got to college, it was the same thing. I was a student athlete. I was going from class to practice to class to training room to class to home trying to do my homework. So just never really got the time to sit back and look at life for a little. And music's helped me with that.
It's kind of helped you sit back and do the thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like doing the thinking, or do you like having the busy schedule more?
I kind of take on both right now because I'm selfish with myself. I'm like I want both worlds, but going with music, I probably enjoy the thinking now.
Okay.
Not in the beginning point because I'm a perfectionist at heart. So those first few months of learning music, it was just like I wanted to throw every single thing I was doing away. It's just like no, not good.
Yeah.
But once I got past that, I was able to just be like, I like it enough. I'm going to put it in there. I'm just enjoying the moment. It made my music better, and it made me enjoy it better.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask, like the creative process, because as I mentioned maybe on this podcast before, Freed and I used to make music. I mean, Freed makes music. He's good.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake's pretty good too. He picked up guitar and piano, and I just like music, so I just try to help where I could.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny because like every time we'd get like maybe 40% of a song, I'd want to keep going, and Freed's like, I think it's plateaued. Like, let's scrap it. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
We don't know. How can we scrap it? So it's interesting because you were saying before we were on the podcast, you liked something, and then like you'd spend a half hour and then just scrap it. And your girlfriend would be like, what? Mm-hmm. So it's like I can relate to her. So how can you just like spend that time and then just scrap it?
At the beginning it was a little rough. I ended up getting an extra hard drive and had way too many save files, but just learned to enjoy the moment of it. Like sometimes I'll go into music and it's like I just want to work on playing chords on the MIDI because I suck at piano.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll end up playing out the chords and I'll make some background stuff with it, and once I'm done with it I'll just scrap it and toss it to the trash. Or if I'm just playing around with new sample techniques, I'll go in, I'll work on the sample, work on the technique that I'm working on, see if I can form something around it. But if it's like the first or second time I'm using that technique, I'm probably not going to save and work on that file. I can scrap it, I can get better at that technique, and I'll make a better file later.
So is it just kind of like a way to learn? Like you don't need to see the fruits of your labor right away, just kind of learning and then maybe later.
Yeah, and then also, like I was saying, growing up in band, like I'm used to just sitting down, playing music, and then moving on to the next thing. Growing up, there was no saving, oh wow, that was a really good session, I'm just going to keep that memory forever. So
what made you want to go into music in the first place, like way back when you were doing band?
So it was back in 5th grade. We were all required to do vocal or band or orchestra. I chose band, and then it came to 6th grade, and we sat us down, choose an instrument. I chose the saxophone. I chose the bigger one. I don't know why. I literally asked the teacher, which one's bigger? That's the one for me.
Okay, you want to just carry all that shit through the halls?
Yeah. And my parents told me, and same thing they told my sister, if they got us the instrument, we had to play it through high school. So that was a commitment I made in 6th grade. I wasn't getting out of it. They weren't going to let me. But I'm glad I did it, so just kind of kept on going through.
Wait, you said so you had to buy the instrument? How would somebody be in band if they didn't buy the instrument? Or did everyone pretty much buy the instrument?
A lot of people bought it. Different music stores had rental programs too, where it'd be like $10 a month or something for the year. And then the school had some instruments as well to give to some kids.
Okay, I always wondered that. I was like, does a school just have like an abundance of instruments?
No.
Just in storage or something?
Mm-hmm. Once we got to middle school, there was a decent amount for people that wanted to just pick up an instrument and learn it. Like, there was enough for a few people to try out like each instrument if they wanted to, but upper elementary school, there wasn't as much of a selection.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's your goal with music now?
I'd really want to become more of a staple producer, be able to meet different artists out there and really get my music out there, see if people like it. But besides that, I don't know, just get people to listen to it, see if they like it. Yeah, that's really it right now. Like I said, they're all royalty free. I'm just kind of putting it out there. People enjoy, they enjoy. I'm making music more for the moment that I'm in right then.
You said working with other artists, would like local small artists be?
Yeah, something? Definitely.
Anything really?
Yeah, anything. I'm really early on in like my music phase. Like I was producing for a while, but I kind of stuck myself in a corner and just sat down and learned. So I'm trying to meet new people, trying to see who wants to collab, see what's going on.
And would you say your genre is more so rap or?
More so hip hop and R&B. I do have some pop tracks out there as well, and I can make a trap beat. I try not to make trap music, just for some of the music fundamental reasons.
Okay. So again, I have very vague knowledge of producing, but do you like use all these sounds that are accessible to you via FL Studio, or do you have like any plugins like a keyboard or a guitar or anything like that you add to it?
So I have a couple different synthesizer programs where I get a lot of my sounds. So that'll be my guitars, pianos, any synths that I want. I also have a subscription to Splice if I want to do any sampling, and that's where I get most of my drums from as well. And then I also have, like I was saying, my own saxophones if I ever want to plug those in to get different noises, a bass, as well as a bongo and tambourine.
So if you plug a saxophone in, can't you also, like if let's say you record a little riff on the saxophone, can't you manipulate that sound in FL Studio too? So It might not even sound like a saxophone.
Yeah, so sometimes I might be looking for like a riser to transition between a verse and a chorus, and I just want to do something different, so I'll grab my saxophone, make a riser sound, and then I'll edit it out, make it a lower pitch, and make it a completely different sound, so it sounds like the riser I was kind of hearing. Okay. So it'll be sourced from the saxophone, but it'll sound nothing like a sax.
Yeah, because I know you could do that with like obviously the keyboard, and then I've seen it with the guitar, but I figured you could probably do that with any instrument then. But yeah, that's cool. I know I have a piano downstairs that like someone from my old work was selling it for $150, and it's literally like a $2,000 piano, and like it has so many different program like instruments into it. So like you're playing keyboards, but it sounds like drums, or it sounds like guitar or flute or saxophone, and then you can even pitch that up all within that computer or all within that keyboard. And I'm just like, why would anybody give this away for $150? It's a fucking massive thing, dude. But yeah, that's cool. So okay, pivoting away from the music, another thing that you said kind of came to mind when you're like, oh, what do you want to talk about, was living out of state, which I didn't know you did.
Yeah.
I did know that because right out of high school, I didn't know if it was out of state, but I knew you weren't in town anymore because you'd come home every once in a while. Where were you living?
I was down in North Carolina in Wilmington, right off the coast there, going to school at University of North Carolina, Wilmington.
Okay, for track?
Yep. So initially, I just kind of went down there. I chose a school, and then I walked onto the track team. So
why did you want to go to, what you said, North Carolina?
I was really struggling with the college choice. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. My stepmom ended up bringing up UNC Wilmington, said her friend went there. Once I got the acceptance letter, I kind of just said, screw it, I'll give it a try.
Okay, did you go there all 4 or 5 years or whatever?
Yep, all 4 years that I went there.
Nice, dude. And so you lived on campus?
Lived on campus the first year, and then I was off campus the last 3.
Okay, so what about living out of state? I guess what's the first thing that comes to mind? Why would you want to bring that up?
The first thing that comes to mind is definitely just the culture change. It's one of the more subtle things, but once you pick up on it, it can alter a lot of your viewpoints of life, a lot of different ways you go about everything, just because, I mean, your different responses, different situations you're in all the time.
What's an example of a cultural change from here to North Carolina?
Well, as no shock, Midwesterns tend to be a bit more upfront with things. We're a lot more outgoing, and going down south, you definitely get more of the reserved culture. One of my favorite examples is if you hear someone from the south say "bless your heart," that is not a compliment.
No, it's like condescending.
Yeah, it's more of a condescending thing. It's like, oh, walk away, bless your heart, I'm going to walk away from this situation type of scenario. And I didn't know that until I went down south. Like, I thought it was like a nice thing for people to say. And then people started telling me kind of the tendencies. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. All right.
So they're more reserved, but they're just sneaky about how they're going to talk shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You had to kind of more pick it out.
Okay. Is there any other cultural shocks or, difference in norms from here to there?
The pacing was a lot different. Being in a beach town, everything tends to be a little bit more slower in the beach town. I know coming back here, it took me a second to get used to driving everywhere again, because down there they do not have any roads or anything. Well, they have roads, but they don't have like the freeway system we have, where you're going across state in 45 minutes. That you're going to cross city in like 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just getting used to the pacing, being able to move, like, for example, my job going from Pontiac to Northville back and forth. Down there, it was like I'm going across the street to go to work. I might go to the beach a couple miles away, and everyone's just a lot more slower pace, easy with everything.
So did you enjoy living down there?
I definitely enjoyed living down there. It was difficult moving back home, but glad that I came back home, came back for the job experience, and then looking to maybe get back down there eventually.
Okay, so you wanted to kind of stay?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to stay. I ran into the problem of I graduated school. I didn't have much work experience because I was on the track team. I didn't get an internship out of college, so came back here to get some experience on my resume.
Okay, so that's a question I guess I want to ask, because as I knew, and you made it clear, you always did lots of sports. And so when you got to the end of college, you didn't have as much work experience as maybe you'd like. What do you think, like, would you, having known that, would you have stuck with as much sports? Would you have tried to get, like, an internship or a job throughout high school or college? Like, I guess, because I see both sides of, they both have their benefits. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm glad that I did it when I had the chance to do it. It definitely was upsetting once I was done with sports, knowing that I wasn't going to be playing sports. They weren't going to be taking me to different meets anymore. I'm not riding any buses, doing anything. But I'm definitely glad that I did it. I wouldn't change it just because I had the chance to do it and that I took it. But like I was saying, being done, it's definitely a bit rough.
Yeah. Is it because, so when you were doing sports, it kept you busy.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like you didn't know what to do? Like, why was it rough, I guess? I don't want to say my thoughts. I just want to know why is it rough?
The biggest struggle I had for me was going into the interviews and everything. Just, I guess, picking a new thing to go into because I had it stuck in my mind with sports. Like, if I start something, I'm starting it till the end. I'm going to work till perfection. That was my mindset through all my sports. So going into a job, it was hard to sit down and like be calm-minded into that interview because I'm thinking about, do I even like this job? Do I even want it? What if I'm not good enough for this position? What am I going to do in 5 years? What am I going to do in 10 years? And just kind of overthinking every scenario. So getting that overthinking process out of my head definitely helped once I got back here.
So have you been kind of able to get over the overthinking process?
Yeah, it's gotten a bit easier. It's something that I've always had, so it's always going to be present, but it's gotten better.
Yeah, because that's something I'd say, maybe not to the same extent, but I do that as well. At least I feel like I do. What have you done to kind of rid yourself of that, I guess?
Well, number one thing, it didn't start out that way, but definitely with music. I basically, whenever I sit down and make music, I force myself. Number one, I'm not referencing any like genre. I'm not referencing any other artists. I'm just sitting down in front of FL Studios with no plan, and I just put something in. And if I start overthinking, I'm like, well, no, it's just gonna stay there, and we'll see if it's good. Just kind of forcing back the overthinking process by putting me in a situation that usually I would overthink it, and definitely with music creation, just like analyzing every little bit of detail.
So do you think that in that sense of music, it's better to have more free flow or more calculated approach when you're putting a song together?
The calculated approach builds the foundation, but the free flow is where you actually create the music and the story. If and like I was saying, a big thing with me, I like my music. I like the structure of it, the music structure, making sure everything is like really carrying through a story. You're riding a roller coaster through the song. So the foundation, like I said, it's the most important part until you get to the next and most important part.
Mm-hmm.
You want to know, like, yeah, you can't just put a hi-hat in the middle of a beat. It's not going to sound good. And
that's what people do.
You want to keep things in the right tempo, because if you're running 5 different tempos in a song, it's going to sound chaotic. And if you're not trying to make it sound chaotic, then that's not a good sign. But once you get past the structure and you understand, like, keeping things a key, keeping BPM, and keeping everything, like, in the general form that you want it, taking it to that next step allows you to actually get the expression, I feel like.
Yeah.
You can make a good beat, good music. That's not, I'm not saying it's not easy to do, or not hard to do, but like if you have the right foundation, you can definitely do that and whip them out in 5 minutes. But to actually get the expression, get the character in a song, it takes that creativity and freedom and breaking the mold. And I don't know if you remember Miss Parks, she said in English class one time, if you understand a grammar rule to its like entirety, then you're able to break it. And I kind of took that rule and applied it to music and other things.
And Miss Parks was wise.
She is a very smart person.
Yeah, I mean, she probably made my writing 10 times better than going into that class. By the time I left it was probably 10 times better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. Because I feel like I'm a pretty decent writer, maybe not music, but like just writing. Mm-hmm. And I owe that to Miss Parks. But I'm just wondering if you have this issue. So when when we were making music, I felt like I needed to keep it like the song going. Like we could have like a really good 2.5 minute song. I'm like, fuck, that's not long enough. So like I'd try I'd make Freed, come on, we gotta make this longer. And he's like, okay, whatever. Do you ever have like you need to reach a certain point in the song before it's done, or do you just kind of know like, okay, this sounds good and we're gonna leave it here?
So the way I kind of put together my beats, I tried to get rid of that problem as much as I can. Usually by like the third point of like my process is when I'm structuring the song. So I start out, I'll get like 8 different sounds that I like that all sound together in a little 8-bar loop. And then once I get those all set, I'll structure it out into a song structure, whatever I'm feeling in that moment, whether like, verse, chorus, breakdown, chorus, and then ending. And then after I get the structure all set, at that point I start going in and I really just add all the other sounds that I want. That's when I start adding my samples and my little vocal chops, and I'll start doing a lot of the mixing effects and everything. So my like I want to keep going point turns into just putting way too much just random stuff into the song, and then knowing that all right, maybe I should cut it off here, like it's getting a little too crowded.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably a little bit different too. Like if you're making a beat and it's like there's no vocals or anything, and then like if you're working with, I think anytime you add another person, it makes it a little bit more difficult because like you have this idea in your head and they're like, well, I can't create a melody over that to sing, or I can't, like, I don't know, let's go this direction. So because like before I was doing music with Frida, I was just like playing around GarageBand, like they have loops, and I put loops together, and like I'd make like little montage music, I suppose. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, but like when we were doing it, you can't do that because I'm like he or even sometimes he'd make like a cool beat. I'm like, I don't know what to say over that. Like it sounds sick. Like there's even one when we were thinking about putting out an album or like an EP or whatever. There's this one song where it's like the coolest fucking beat, but neither him, me, or Jake could figure out anything to say over it. So like we should just release that as an interlude. Like it's a minute and a half ish, almost 2 minutes, but it's just fucking straight heat. And sometimes I guess there's probably songs that are better off just not having vocals over it. I don't know where I just went on a tangent too, but
No, you're good. That's a big reason why I haven't done vocals yet. I always structure my songs out. It's just like I know this is the chorus, this is the verse, this can be a little intro, this is a switch up. Then I go to pull out a notepad to write down. I'm like, I have no words for any of this.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. It gets fucking tough.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Do you have like, well, I guess you kind of already said, you don't go there. You go into the studio with like zero slate and just whatever comes to you. I think that's probably a better approach because I know, again, when we were doing it, it was like a very emotional time for me. So I was like, oh, this all has to be emotional. And like, we'd have plans to make music, and then maybe that day I wasn't feeling emotional. I'm like, I don't know. I can't pick up where we left off in the song because I'm not in the same headspace. So then we'd try to force it, and then it would sound like shit because it's like, each song, if you're doing it right, has a mood, and you can't always recapture that. So I feel like it's probably that way with beats too, even without lyrics. You might put your certain emotion to a song, and you're just like, I stepped away from it, and I can't get myself back into it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of files where they just end up getting lost because I just can't recapture that same feeling that I had. But a lot of my more recent music, I've been trying to actually use it to my advantage of stepping away. So I'll get like my 8-10 sounds in a loop, and I'll be like, I like this loop. I'm working on this tomorrow or the day after, and just getting multiple days to look at it to kind of get multiple different perspectives on the music.
Okay, it probably achieves like a more well-rounded sound because you have different moods going into it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's definitely made it a lot more fun, especially when I do switch ups in my songs. So I might take it from a nice, easy, relaxing mood to just hard synths out of nowhere. And being able to get multiple days and really work on those different sections in different days, it helps connect it a little bit better.
Okay. So this might not make any sense, but is there any connection between sports and music? Because I'll leave it at that. Is there any connection to you between sports and music?
The only connection that I can think of would be just the work ethic behind it. If you're going to get into music, it's going to take a lot of time to get to the place that you want to be, because the place you want to be is always going to be ahead of you. And it's just like anything that you're really striving for, especially when it's more in a creative realm and something where you have to really think and come up with something. You're always trying to get better than you were the day before. And I don't know. I just went on a tangent there, and
No,
I
that made
zoned out there.
sense. That
But
made sense.
yeah, with sports, it was kind of just the same thing. Just every single day going in and knowing that putting 30 minutes in of just stretching is better than doing absolutely nothing that day. And just taking that mindset into music, like, okay, just sitting down and playing something on the piano and deleting it is better than not saving a project that day.
Yeah. No, I mean, it. I like to hear your interpretation of like the similarities. It's just interesting because like sports. Well, I know the sports you play are more physically enduring, right? It's you're improving yourself and pushing yourself physically. As for music, I wouldn't really say it's physical. It's more mental and creative, which again is your brain that has to do the creative work. So it's like two completely different avenues that like you're exhausting or you're working out. So I just find it interesting that you did several sports and then now are doing music, and it's two totally different things, but I think there are some similarities. So I don't even know if I'm making sense, dude.
No, you're good. I get it. Are there any similarities that you could kind of draw from them that you're thinking of?
Well, so for me, music and sports had two similarities. They were both fun. I enjoyed both of them, but also they both kind of let me get shit out. Like when I was playing hockey, some days I'd be going, I'm like, oh, I'm excited because it's going to be fun. And some days I'm like, oh, I'm going to fucking crush somebody because I'm feeling really fucking angry. Or I'm just going to skate as fast as I can to just get out energy because I just have so much shit pent up. And like maybe I even, like, it wouldn't even be like conscious thoughts. It'd just be like, I needed to do that. And after I do it, I don't know what my problem was, but it feels good. And music's kind of the same way. Like I would go in, like even if we're not creating music, I put on a song and I sing a little bit, or I dance, or if we are creating music, I write out a little bit and we record 30 seconds or a minute of a song. After leaving that, I'm like, oh, fuck, I feel way better. And it's like, I don't even sometimes know that I have like an issue going into it. And when I leave, I just feel like I don't know, relieved. So those would probably be the two, I guess, similarities I draw from sports and music.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I kind of like think of it almost like that sigh of relief. Like whatever was going on, something was bothering you. You might not even know what it was. What for me it was going into track practice. Just like I'm just gonna go pole vault. I'm gonna fall 12 feet 5 times in a row, and I'm gonna feel better about whatever's bothering me. And then going into music, it was the same thing. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna sit down and make music for an hour and a half. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if it's gonna be good, but I got some stuff I gotta work on.
Yeah, dude. So I don't want to prize. So if you don't want to answer it, by all means. But I'm just curious because you said that you like to keep yourself busy, which I do too. And I think it got to a point where I started realizing maybe why I was keeping myself busy, and I'm like, ooh, I just need to do some more thinking. And it seems like that's what you're doing with music. But and you said it was difficult moving back to home. Not just because you like living in North Carolina. I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, did you keep yourself busy because you didn't, like, you were just, I don't know. Why did you keep yourself so busy? Do you know? Have you ever thought about that?
There's a lot in my closet from my past that I've been working through for a long time, but just trying to keep my head busy from that. Large part, growing up, my mom wasn't in the picture. She left when I was very young. So dealing with that, I had my stepmom from almost day one. So I did have a mom figure growing up, but just going through, I was always a curious young kid. So it's just like, all these other kids, they have their mom. My mom's not here. No, I'm different from everyone else. And just like those weird thoughts just coming up, going through that. But then also, grew up in it was a hardworking home. My parents were strict, but for good reasons. They really worked hard to raise me and my sister. But sports was almost like an escape. It's like I could sign up and do track, even though I'm already doing baseball. Or I could go home, then I have to do my homework. I'll probably have to do some cleaning. I don't really feel like being home right now. I'll just pick up another sport.
Yeah.
That was kind of my mindset going through it a lot.
Okay. And then you'd get good at the sport.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, that makes sense, and I'm sorry for prying. I didn't.
It's good. Don't worry.
But again, here's something I've always wanted to ask. Maybe not you specifically, but and I hope it doesn't come off insensitive. You're mixed, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I have been at work. I'll tell you why this has kind of come up. At work, there was a conversation around Juneteenth, right? Which I didn't even know what it was in celebration of. Didn't know much about it, and then it kind of turned into mental health and how specifically black men. There's like a big stigma around mental health. Like they can't talk about shit like that. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious, if like growing up in like a strict family, if that also was kind of like, we don't talk about us having issues. Cause like, I know even just as a guy, there's stigma around. Like it took me years to like even be able to admit like I was not feeling great. So again, I feel like I don't want you to feel like I'm like,
no, you're good.
But like, do you think maybe like there's a little bit of that, I guess?
I can only speak from my experience
exactly.
and from what I've heard with others as well, but I've definitely, not directly, it's not in your face, like you cannot talk about your problems, how dare you do that, but I mean, growing up it was never really a thing. I'd just be like, all right, whatever, put my head down and go back to work was kind of the mindset. But yeah, it's definitely weird, and it's why I kind of struggle talking about it now, because most of my life I never really talked about my problems.
Yeah.
My problems are just things that need to be solved was my mindset.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like a taboo thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sounds like anytime you solve an issue, you get really critical and just fucking get to the core of it. So, last question kind of along these lines.
Yeah.
Just because, again, I don't know. I'm just a fucking white dude. Do you, like, ever have, like, internal battle of, like, identifying more as white or black or whatever? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. So early on, I did a bit, especially going through middle school, when all of us were little spawns of Satans and loved saying the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Because I laugh about it now, but it'll be like, all right, you guys are making black jokes to me, but then the minute I try to take credit for something being black, it's like, shut up, you're white. I'm like, this makes no sense. Yeah, I kind of growing up, it was a bit of an identity thing, just trying to figure out, like, I never really fit in with anyone. Like, we grew up in Livonia, it was predominantly white, and then there were black people, but there weren't a lot of mixed people going around, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of just say, whatever, I'm a little bit of both. I don't really fit in with anyone is kind of my mindset now.
Yeah.
But in a positive way. It's like, you don't want to be the same person everywhere. Like, having your differences are good. I
agree, and I wanted to hear your perspective because, like, to me, like, I don't give a shit if you have 10 races in you. Like, I never saw that, like, as, like, an issue, and then, the rapper Logic, I think he was a lot better than he is now. He's still good, but he talked about, like, not, like, he's black and he's white. He's mixed. Why do you, like, but, like, the same thing you just said, like, sometimes, if he tried to claim that he's black, like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And so I just, I feel like I've never seen that, and obviously I've never been, like, it's never been put on me, so I just didn't know if, like, that was actually a thing. So hearing him say that, I was like, oh, okay. And then, I asked your perspective and you had similar thoughts. It's just, I don't know. That's weird to me. Not weird, but just because I haven't, I wouldn't think that it matters what you're made up of.
Yeah.
But
I actually came up with a little bit of a rap verse for it, but it hasn't been said anywhere. It just kind of sits in my mind, but it's kind of like, let me tell you what it's like to be biracial. You either get pushed to the side or stepped out the way, so maybe there's something wrong with the system. Instead of fighting each other off, we find a way to mix them.
Okay.
Because it's like, I don't know, for me, and I'm just some guy like the rest of us, so talking about race, it's like that's a big problem that everyone's a part of. Like, my opinion's not going to help too much, but at the end of the day, we're all people, and not the I don't see color mentality, but it's just like we're all just different shades. That doesn't really mean that much.
Yeah.
And that's at least the mindset that I try to take about it.
And I feel like that's how a lot of people are, but like, again, we won't have to go into this topic. But like the media, in my opinion, like it makes it seem like it's so much more, like people are so much more polarizing than we are. Because I feel like most people who I know, and again, I guess I would have a tainted opinion because, you know, I'm white and typically I'm not discriminated against. But like most people I know, I feel like treat everybody the same. They don't really give a shit. But for some reason, it always seems like talking about race in general is just kind of like uncomfortable. And I don't know why it should be, because it's like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. But why is it so uncomfortable? Like, I felt really uncomfortable bringing it up, even though, like, I know you, and, like, I don't think you're just gonna fucking storm out of here and be like, fuck you. But, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I just wish it wasn't so, like, weird to talk about that. Because, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's definitely one of those things, just a product of history and product of the modern times, too. Just the different things going on that make it a little bit more of a touchy subject.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I like thinking back to like 90s, 2000s growing up. You have like Full House, Cosby Show, and like what was it, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on.
Yeah,
and whenever they talked about race, it was like this big moment. Everyone gathered in a circle. They start playing the delicate music.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're just talking. Like, yes, there's problems behind it, but we grew up seeing it as like this important scene. So now we think that it has to be like this delicate, like important subject that we really hold on to. But just talking about it at the end of the day is really what's going to get most of the things through.
Yeah, and honestly, so I mean, I agree. That's a good point. That workshop I was a part of about Juneteenth kind of made me realize that, like, unless I just don't remember, in school they left out a lot of different things. And the person who was presenting, so basically this discussion started with like an expert, leading it. It was a video. Like, it wasn't a TED Talk, but like it would be like if we watched a TED Talk and then discussed. So it was somebody like talking about Juneteenth and what it meant and like the book she wrote, and then it turned over and we all had discussion. And I'm like, she made some fucking eye-opening points, basically saying like, and I hope I don't butcher it, because I'm gonna try my best to recite it. But basically, she was saying like, well, for one, Juneteenth's the celebration of really freedom for all, because the Emancipation Proclamation was 2 years prior, and slaves in Texas weren't actually free until Juneteenth, which I fucking never even knew. Feel like I should have known that growing up. Also, when we celebrate that, like when the day comes around, like, oh, this was the day, however many years ago that women could vote. That wasn't all women. That was specifically, it excluded Black women and Native American women. Why did I not know that? Like, she made the point, and I never knew this, but now that she brought it to the table, I'm like, oh, you might be right. When we celebrate shit like that, it's like, it's either speaking of men or speaking of white people. And it's never like, we never celebrate like when everybody can do something in history. And it's like, but we're not taught that. And she said, and sorry, I'm going on a rant, but she said, it's, in her opinion, it's because that's like the ugly part of our past, and so we don't like to talk about it, but because we won't face it, it's never going to be solved. So I just was like, oh, fuck, you're right. And she goes, it's the Black people's history, it's white people's history, we're all part of it, it's what made America. It was made on the backbone of that's how we made our money, was through the slave trade. And dude, I was just like, fuck. She just hit me with some knowledge. I'm like, how did I not know all of this growing up? Like, that should be taught in history as well. And to my recollection, it wasn't, which I think is an issue.
Yeah, it's... Sorry, I just had something on my head and it's blanking out.
Happens to the best of us.
Oh, yeah. But like one thing in history, when Black people first got their freedom, for the black males, and I'm speaking off memory, so I could be completely wrong here. I'm pretty sure I remember this correctly. But they were pretty much free from the very get-go, with a lot of their freedoms allowed. And that was only after a few years, I believe it was I can't remember what political side it was, but they started saying, oh, maybe the black vote isn't as important right now, so they dialed back on trying to let the freedoms go through, which then you started getting a lot of state laws that came in restricting them once again. And those were the laws that were really fought over during the Martin Luther King time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dude, no, that's so... I hope I didn't misunderstand that, but what you were saying is also kind of what they did back with, like, around Abraham Lincoln's time. Like,
yeah.
And again, I didn't know this, and so hopefully I don't misrecall it. But again, what this lady was saying was, like, when, what's his name? Lincoln, wrote or put out the proclamation or Emancipation Proclamation,
mm-hmm.
he didn't take slaves from the North. He took them from the South because he didn't want the people in the North, some of those states that were, had a big slave presence to join the South. So he literally was like, the North or the South can't have slaves anymore. And how the fuck did I never know that?
Yeah.
So the North had them.
It was a direct thing against the South. And I can't remember, because this is back in like 6th grade history now, but if I remember correctly, there were a couple states either already on the fringe or already seceded from the United States before Abraham Lincoln did that. And basically the Emancipation Proclamation was like a middle finger to the South. It's just like, oh, you guys don't want to be here? Well, here's a law saying you can't have slaves. Give them to us, or you're really fighting, is basically what it was.
Yeah, dude, but how does that go so unmissed? Like, so missed? Like, I literally thought, like, my understanding until just this past week of the Emancipation Proclamation was, like, slavery was abolished and the war was over that. Like, that's why people were fighting. That's part of why people were fighting. But it was, I had no fucking idea what it was actually about and, like, how that actually went about. So I don't know if maybe I just wasn't paying attention to history class.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I would have some, like, small remembrance of that, and that's news to me.
My favorite example was the cotton gin. So the cotton gin, the creator made it in hopes of reducing the amount of slaves needed on a different complex, different plantation to help free slaves and help them earn their freedom and make things better. So he made the job of picking cotton a lot easier with the cotton gin. But what it did was the plantation owners saw the cotton gin, realized they could produce even more, took on even more slaves, had all of them using the cotton gin, and made slavery an even bigger problem.
I feel like I actually did know that one. I don't know if it was taught in school or whatever, but I feel like I knew that one. Which is, it's just like, I'm not laughing at it now, but it's like, oh no, this guy thought he was doing something good and it got turned evil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, more of all that is, and I would agree with what the woman was saying. I fucking wish I remember her name, because I mean, the video was pretty impactful. But you can't change anything going forward if you don't acknowledge and learn from what was in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, so bring up a small aside, kind of stemming from that. She said that's why it's so important we talk about, the shitty things that are happening now or that have happened in the past. And that made me think, because, like, right now, one of my biggest complaints about, like, social media and, like, the news is that it's always fucking negative. And I hate seeing that. But at the same time, I get her point of, like, well, if we don't address it, then, yeah, you might be comfortable because, like, it didn't affect you specifically. But if we never address it, we never acknowledge it, we never work through it, then it'll only get worse or stay the same. It'll never get better.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what to think of, like, news should just be always showing negative shit.
I don't know. The news is a touchy subject for me. I go back and forth on a lot of things. But with at least this past couple years with the negative press that's been going on, I do have a problem with it. The main reason is because and this might just be my point of view, but
sure.
it is like, it seems like it's completely targeted to rile your emotions for entertainment purposes so that you'll get into it and watch it more. And then alongside of that, just with the past 4 years of the kind of the laws around the internet have really changed and adapted. And so now you have like your YouTube, Twitter, and everyone that's just blocking people off of their platforms. And I don't know, no matter what it is, if you have someone with that much power suppressing your voice, I understand a lot of people's argument is the First Amendment doesn't protect you in that because they're a private company, which I understand. But when a private company has as much power, wealth, and influence as a high nation, I feel like maybe that right should still be there, no matter what the topic of discussion is.
I definitely agree. And it's like, and I feel like most of the time they say they're censoring stuff is because they don't want the spread of misinformation, but it's like, you know how much misinformation is spread on there every second?
That's one of the biggest laughing points for me, because 95% of the internet is misinformation and absolute crap. Yeah. So how are you telling me that this one post that you're going, or this one person posting, is actually helping that problem?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree. And I agree with your point. Like, I do think the negativity in the news and on media is literally to polarize, like, it's to make two sides and to make them against each other and make it interesting. So it's like, oh, let's see more, which I fucking hate, because I think most people in the United States and just in the world are alike than they are dissimilar. Like, when it comes to just being a fucking human being and good person, or I don't want to say good person, but like not so hateful. Yeah. But it makes it seem like everyone's so hateful every day and like we're doomed. So I agree with your point there. My question to that would be, how do we then give the news of like the shit that's going on so that way we can fix it, or do we just ignore it?
That's difficult. If you want to get into the economics and finance side of it, it gets really chaotic with everything. But at the end of the day, going back to what the news used to be, true reports that you need to hear, whether understanding if there is an actual presence of something bad happening in your area. So like, not saying it's not something important and not something that needs to be addressed and not something that we as a species are better than, but if there is a robbery going on in Wisconsin, I probably don't need to see that on my local news. And if that's on there, that's not really benefiting me in the way the news was created to benefit me. The news was supposed to inform you about what's going on, either to help you better yourself, make your day better, or keep you informed about the larger actions going on in the world.
Yeah. See, I think with the robbery, I might want to know about it because I might be at risk at robbery. But I will say, like, the ones that, like, I don't understand, and I think this is where they want the entertainment value of it, is, like, let's say a man kills, like, a whole family. Well, if he's already caught and he's not a threat, why do you need to spread that news? For one, it doesn't add any value to that family or their loved ones because they're going to be contacted already and they probably don't want it publicized. For two, all that does for me is make me fucking upset. So like shit like that, where like, here's a horrible thing, but the threat is gone. Don't spread that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what, I do not see one benefit in spreading that. Like, to create awareness of what?
I don't know. That's difficult, especially with at least a lot of media nowadays. Unfortunately, it is a lot of just pure entertainment, even when it does come to the news. But a big part of it is kind of to make you feel involved, is what I think it is. Being involved in something bigger that does give you a reaction. At the end of the day, a lot of us, we do just kind of go from work to home with our families, work, home, vacation, work, home. So then going on to the news and seeing something exciting happening, oh, but it's been resolved. That was really scary. I'm glad they got that person. It gives you a way to kind of attach and be a part of something that's not your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, me personally, I don't agree with that. I'm not a fan of that type of entertainment. Like I said, I took a long social media hiatus. Really was just kind of learning music for a while there. A big part of it just, for me, I don't know, if there's a larger than normal group of people all talking about the same thing, it's not really a good thing in my mind. We're made to be individuals, and we benefit because we're all individuals working together.
Yeah.
We're not all one person with one mind.
Yeah. No, you made a good point about like being attached to something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that being attached to something is a bad thing, but just when it's so much, I feel like we as humans just get overwhelmed. Like, I don't think we have the mental capacity to just see so much shit. Whether it's a bad thing, but then it has an okay ending. Like, we can't just, like, it just drags our emotions all over the page. So it's like, and that's all we're fed, just consistently. You can't turn on the news in the morning, afternoon, nighttime. From my understanding, I don't really watch the news much anymore, but it's more shit than it is, like, stuff that I care, like, that's good. It's more like, oh, local bank was robbed, or not bank, but, you know, store, or mother of 2 dead. It's like, okay. Like, so yeah, I get attached to that, and if it was like one story here and there where it makes me feel like I'm in tune with my community, fine, but it's just so much shit where it's like I'm overwhelmed knowing that all of these things are going on. And that's, I think, how, you know, people are, like, that's how, like, helicopter parents are created, where it's like, I don't even know, I can't let my kids go out in the world because all I see is shit. You know? I don't know, man. News is...
Yeah, that's one thing that did scare me a lot about the big C-19 word, COVID going on, just with how much presence it had, just being on every single newscast.
And all over the world.
I go on YouTube, no matter what I do, there's an extra bar of COVID-19 videos. I go on Google, featured COVID-19 everywhere. And it's really, number one, it's made it that it's one of the biggest topics that people are talking about right now, for good and for bad. But because of that, if everyone's talking about one thing, you're going to end up with more conflict.
Yeah.
Because if you're only talking about one thing, you're going to end up picking a side and picking a polarity in it.
Yeah, well, and I think you also put on blinders to other shit that's important. Like, that's not the only thing in our life that's important right now.
Yeah.
So not only are you going to have, I mean, like you said, there's always going to be, you know, opinions. So if it's a big issue, there's going to be very strong opinions towards this issue for people who disagree. But then also, if that's all we're talking about, then we forget about other shit. It's like, and then it's just, I mean, obviously, if it's conflict, it's not usually a good feeling. Yeah. So it's like a full, just everyone's talking about shit that makes them upset all the time for a year and a half.
Yeah, your fight or flight has been on 24/7 for a year. It is not fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of the point of having conversations like these, where it's like, fucking, can we have conversation? Maybe it's not so hateful, or if it is, let's talk about it in a calm way, share opinions, and then, okay, cool. Like, not like, I don't know. It's, yeah. What you see in the media, and you see it sometimes in person too, but I feel like mostly I see it in the media where there's just so much divisiveness, and I cannot stand it. But anyway, good conversation. One way I always like to end these is with a mental health tip. So anything that you do to help accomplish good mental health, or if you're having a bad day, you need to step back from that ledge and just, you know, level set. I always like to ask people because, for one, for my own repertoire of things maybe I could potentially do to make myself feel better, or for two, somebody's out there listening, they don't know what to do when they're feeling shitty. They can maybe draw inspiration from what my guests on here say. So with that, what's your mental health tip?
My biggest two is breathe through your nose as much as you can. It's much better at processing oxygen than your mouth, and it definitely helps slow down your heart rate. And number two, don't underestimate the power of just taking a deep breath sometimes. I know you hear it from anyone and everyone, just take a deep breath. But really, like, if you feel the stress building up, take that deep breath. If anyone's like looking at you or whatever, laugh it off. It gives you a second to just step away from whatever you're thinking about. Yeah, no, the nose one's a big thing. And I realized, like, and sorry to take from your... No, you're good. But we were, Kenzie and I went hiking last week or 2 weeks ago, and I noticed, like, I was more fatigued and I was doing my breathing in my mouth. So, like, even though it was a steep fucking hike, as long as I could just... to my nose, I felt way better. And like I wasn't like dizzy. I felt like I had more air in my lungs, and I could go longer and be less fatigued. So, and I didn't like, I thought like that's counterintuitive because I think naturally we want to breathe through our mouths. So I figured that would be the better thing to do. But I noticed like, I'm feeling better when I'm breathing through my nose. So maybe I'm breathing harder through my nose
so it's just a different feeling for me. But that's a good tip.
Yeah, that's something learned in like one of the first few weeks getting to college and track is just really focusing. No matter what you're doing, breathe through your nose as long as you can. There's a whole bunch of different like air circulation going on in your nose that is completely different than your mouth, because your mouth just kind of hunks it down and tells your lungs good luck. But your nose actually processes it out, filters out a lot of the crap, and gets more oxygen to your lungs than just your mouth.
So can you breathe through your nose when you're running?
Yeah, like for the 400, for the first 200, 250 meters, so like half of the track, it's inhaling through your nose if you can, but more aggressive breaths outward with your mouth. But you want to really get it in through your nose as long as you can before your body forces you to start breathing through your mouth.
Okay. Last question, because I know we're at time, but I'm curious because you've always been really good at like weightlifting, and like I got my breathing down, like make sure I'm breathing. But I think now I'm thinking about it, I think most of the time when I'm trying to really lock in my breaths, I do it through my mouth. Would you say it's better to breathe through your nose, like if you're bench pressing or if you're squatting?
Let's see. With bench pressing and squatting, breathing through your nose all the way up until you're about to prep for actually getting on the bench. Once you're in the bench, doing some mouth breathing does help, because that does help drive your adrenaline when you're doing heavy mouth breathing.
Okay.
But as a whole, nose breathing better, definitely.
Okay. Thank you for the tip, Nate. Anyway, dude, thanks for coming on. That was a good conversation. I like that. If you're hearing this and you want to be on the podcast, just let me know. Hit me up, TIMM Podcast at fucking Instagram or Facebook. TIMMpod@gmail.com. Oh, I almost forgot. Very last segment. I'm gonna try to start doing this. Unsolicited ads, because I don't like shit when it's forced on me. But what's one thing you'd recommend? TV show, brand, anything like that? Restaurant, doesn't matter.
Right now, everyone out home probably just needs a nice Reese's cup. I'm going to definitely say get a Reese's today. It's just sounding good.
Get a Reese's, okay. Okay. And I guess my unsolicited ad would be go on a hike.
Ooh.
Fucking loved it. It's not a brand, but it's a great fucking... Go on a hike. It can even be in Michigan. And then you want to plug your producer name one more time?
Oh, yeah, of course. So Raji Records on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Music, YouTube as well. It's R-A-J-I, and then Records, R-E-C-O-R-D-S. Perfect. You heard it here. Go check it out. It's good stuff. The one you most recently shared, I checked it out, and it was good. So thank you again, and until next week, guys. See ya.